Hello students, this lesson is about terms and definitions. Now when we use the word terms in this context, we're talking about words and definitions. When we refer to the word context, what we mean is the context of a word is made up of punctuation marks, words, sentences, and paragraphs that surround the word. So it's everything around the word that gives us clues about its context. Now there are things inside of text that help us understand more about the term. So sometimes a definition is given, or sometimes the term is given in italics. For example, here the word emblem is in italics. Or the word could be given in bold. Here the word phobias is given in bold type. Or the word might be put in quotation marks. For example, here, hill climbing is put in quotation marks. All of these markers help us see that there is a term that is going to be given a definition. Other types of markers that you might see in a text, you might see the word is. So you would see the word context is, and then a definition is given. You might see the word define or definition, such as context is defined as, and then they give the definition. Or it might say the definition of context is, and then they give the definition. You might see something that says that is, and then i.e., which means in other words, and then they explain the word after that. Or it might say this means, and then they explain the word after that. So is and are called, and then they explain the term after that. Or it refers to, and then they explain the term. Or they just say in other words, and then they explain it. You might see particular types of punctuation marks. Punctuation marks are the little nikudot, psikim, and so forth. We have here a comma. So sometimes a word is given, and then they put a comma, and then they put the definition after the comma. Or a dash. Same thing. They'll give a word, and then they put a dash, and then they put the definition. Or even a colon. They'll put a colon, and then they put the definition. Or they might put the definition inside of two parentheses or inside of two brackets. So examples can also be given to help clarify a term or a concept. So some phrases, for example, and then you might see E.G. which is Latin for exempli gratia, and that just means that an example is now going to be given. Or for instance, or such as, or to illustrate, or as an illustration, or to be specific, or specifically, or one, and then it might give the example, or like. You could also see these same punctuation marks being used for examples, the comma, the dash, the colon, the parentheses, or the brackets. So here's some examples of what you might see in a text. we have the word phonetics. Phonetics would be the term that's being defined. So phonetics is, and now that tells us that what's coming next is the definition. The study of speech sounds used in human languages. So we just simply used the word is to say that there is a definition coming. In here we have matter. Matter is defined as. So we have matter is the term, and the definition comes after is defined as. So the definition is anything that occupies space and has weight. And down here, we're going to have IE, which is in other words. So we're going to say something here, and then we're going to say it again in other words, which explain it better. So to predict further population growth, we need to establish national fertility rates and mortality rates. IE, which means in other words, the number of births, that would be the fertility rates, and deaths, that would be the mortality rates, per year in a country. So this actually explains what national fertility rates and mortality rates are. Now let's look at this one. We can see, because sonogram is red, that it's going to be the term, and we can see that the definition is going to come afterwards. Some birth defects in unborn children are identifiable with a sonogram, a picture of the developing baby produced by sound waves. So a picture produced by sound waves is more specifically the sonogram. It could be a picture of the developing baby in this context. Here's another example. We can identify 6 main categories of English consonants. So English consonants is the term, and we have some words here, identify categories. That tells us something's coming, that we're going to have categories coming, and we now know that those categories are going to be of English consonants. So here they are: stops, fricatives, affricates, nasals, liquids, and glides. So those are our 6 main categories of English consonants. Now, a lot of times in academic texts, authors define terms as they are used in the discipline. The discipline-specific definition may be different than the general definition. The author usually gives the common definition first, and then gives the discipline-specific definition. So here's going to be examples of that. Which definitions are general, which are discipline-specific? The word intelligence. Now you can see that it has the word psychology here in parentheses. So all of these are different definitions, but this one is discipline-specific for psychology. The capacity for understanding, ability to perceive and comprehend meaning. Here, this one is a general definition, and so is this one. It's a general definition. And then we have more discipline specific again. These 2 definitions have to do with the military. Now let's look at another example. Now this is a piece of text. Status usually refers to the relative position of one thing to another. That would be a general definition. However, sociologists, now we're getting discipline specific. Sociologists define status as the position of one individual in relation to other members of a group. They also distinguish between two types of status. Okay, so that tells us that they're going to talk about two different kinds. An individual has ascribed status, that must be one kind, regardless of his wishes or abilities, just by being born male or female, or by being born into a given social, ethnic, or racial group. Achieved status, this must be the other kind. Remember, we had ascribed status in italics, so now we have achieved status. It's the other type of status. Achieved status is a social position that an individual reaches through choice, ability, and competition. And that is the end of this lesson.